One of the most difficult things to do when you are researching information is to go into it not already with a preconceived notion or a predetermined landing point. And obviously, my guy here, Anthony, had a predetermined landing point when he researched the Imperial Papyrus and did not do the full research, but only researched those that were most likely done by a few religious scholars who are Christian. Because most scholars, period, do not accept this writing as an extra biblical account of the Exodus. As a matter of fact, one of the things that jumps right off the map in the very beginning, that lets you know that it is not an Exodus story, is that it actually talks about the arrival of an Asiatic people. Most likely is referring to the Hyksos, but it's talking about the arrival of an Asiatic people into Egypt. One of the other things that they fail to understand or recognize or to accept is the fact that this papyri that was found, it was the copy that we have is in around the 19th dynasty of Egypt, or the New Kingdom era of Egypt, which would at the latest or at the earliest to our time, it puts the paper between 1290 BCE and 1180 BCE, which, if you're looking at it from that standpoint of time, um, it is very easily understood as to what it was talking about, if it was talking about that period of time. You see, that period of time is at the beginning of the Bronze Age collapse. We have the Phoenician, the Sea people defeating the Kemetic people in the Levant. We also have other factions of people who are defeating the Egyptians in their land. So we see a fall, a downturn in the Egyptian society. And so it is talking about people coming in, and it is talking about how the society is fallen based on other elemental things that are going on, i.e., the Bronze Age collapse. As far as it's saying that the river is blood, most scientists and archaeologists thinks that it is because every year when the Nile Valley floods, when the Nile River floods, every year it has a red sediment to it. It looks red. It looks like algae bloom. It looks like it could be blood. But there was something that happened every year, and they knew that it was because of the sediment. It wasn't algae, but the sediment when the Nile River Valley floods. So that takes that part away right off the whip. Now, most archaeologists, because of the style of writing is actually more Middle Kingdom Egypt. So if it's more Middle Kingdom Egypt, kind of like the prophecies of Nefertiti, this was a time frame when there were a lot of writings that were cataclysmic writing, kind of like how we had this time frame where everybody was writing 2012 horror, earth destroying movies. But it was a time frame when that was a popular style of writing. It was warning the Kemetic people that they need to go back to their old ways, and they've become too newfangled, and they need to go back to their old ways. So it was more of a warning or a wisdom writing in the style of writing. And this is what linguistic archaeology says about the impure papyrus. And when you understand it from that point of view, it would be like looking at Psalms in the Bible or looking at Ecclesiastes. You're more, I'm passing along wisdom of how you should behave if you want God to still be on your side type of writing. So this is not, it doesn't fit. Now, here's the other part which wouldn't make it fit. Since the style of writing is around Middle Kingdom, which would put it around 2000 BCE, that means that these things were written about and said about Egypt long prior to your Exodus story. Your Exodus story would not happen in the timeline, if it ever did happen, until around 1400 BCE, which means that there's at least 500, 600 years that these things supposedly happened, that the shrubbery and the people were burying the dead, and the possibility of locusts and that sort of thing. All of that happened beforehand. Now, if all of that happened beforehand in around the 2000s, and the Exodus is set around the 1400s, then that would mean that the writers took on a story that they already knew about. Now, since none of your biblical writings were written until around 700 BCE, when they first began being written in around 700 BCE, and they knew, since they were ruled by Egypt, about this Epir papyrus, what's most likely? That in the writing of their own Exodus story, that they borrowed from the Kemetic story to manifest and create their own story. What's more likely? It happened to the Exodus happened, but it could not have happened at any time frame where it would have been recorded by the Kemetic people at that exact time frame, or a people who were trying to find a history, a culture for themselves after the Bronze Age collapse in and around the 900 to 700 BCE, took on the story of their former masters. Where else can you think about a group of people who were freed from their masters and then took on their story? Is that plausible at all? Just want you to think about it. You have a great day. Remember always, you got to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.